Welcome to Falcons Ledge. I'm Austringer, and today we are taking a look at the long-awaited STECS from VKB. This used to be the TECS, but now it's the STECS. Either way, it's still the same device, and this is our initial reactions and review. So, without further ado, let's take a look. In general VKB fashion, we have a box inside of a box. So let's remove that. It's got a nice box with the image of the device on it. Pretty standard looking here. But let's see what's inside the box. Yep, let's take a look inside. Should be very exciting. We have a foam cover, and there's the device inside. But first, let's look at what we have in the container. We have standard fare USB cable. Feels pretty typical, nothing too special. We've got a Phillips head and a Allen wrench, but we've got this set, so we'll just stick with that set. All right, so we will reach in here and pull this out. Accessories box. Accessories box contains a YouTube tutorial. That's really cool. I like that. Very cool. This is the accessories magazine, and that contains these modules, which are buttons, and it contains these modules over here that are hats. That's pretty good. We've got some caps, and then of course we've got these. And underneath these, we have the different detents. Oh, there we are. Cool. Nothing under there. So we'll put that back here. Set that aside. These are these things. Got gray, and we've got another gray, so there's the gray too. And right here we have green, so you can go with gray, green, red. Pretty cool. Nice of them to include this kind of customization as default. So let's take the device out on its own. All right, so first impressions, it's always got to be the way that the device feels. So a little bit of a breakaway feel at first, but I think that was just because it hadn't been moved around and the grease caused that, because now it has a nice smooth feel. See, so you want to be able to make tiny little adjustments here, right? Because if you can't make those tiny little adjustments, let's undo this. So there's that. There's the grip lock. Oh, that feels pretty good, folks. I like that feel. Now, one thing I'm going to mention here is that usually what you're going to do when you have them split is you're going to want to kind of move your hand in that kind of a motion, right? Well, when I do that, I'm pushing buttons here. So that's something to get used to. All right. So let's take a look at first the buttons we have, okay? This is by default. This does not exactly mean that this is how I'm going to test it, okay? So we've got a instantaneous switch here. The switch has a lot of play in it. More play than I'd like, but you definitely can tell when you've activated it. It has a nice tactile feel. This looks like it's a flap switch. Has a lot better feel than this. This has a nice feel. Very distinct detents, I like that. And in feeling around, see, I play in VR, so in feeling around, I'm gonna find this thing really easily, so that's good. The rotaries feel pretty good. I'm going to do an ASMR with each one of the buttons so you can really get an idea of what these things sound like. These are rotaries with a push. I like these because in a lot of my planes, like if you're changing course or changing your heading dials, I like to have those. And then I'll usually use these center ones for other things like, hey, put on my night vision goggles, stuff like that. So these look like they're effectively these, right? Because they're instantaneous. Now, one thing I might say about these two is that the buttons feel fine. So when you're pushing them down, they have a good feel. But the tactile feedback of, hey, you've just activated that is a little bit less than, say, this, right? But they feel good. And then they'll have this center one. The center one has a better feel than the up and down. You know you've done that, but that is kind of hard, not as easy to find the activation of, but you aren't going to mistakenly activate that. These are buttons here, and then a button that is somewhat protected. It's got a shroud on it. And then of course we've got these buttons, which appear to be the same type of buttons as these. So you've got quite a few buttons to activate there. Now, this stuff on this side, which I'll angle it for, these two things, I know for sure, and I believe that one's also associated with it. These play into changing your detents. And I don't know for sure yet whether or not they can be utilized as other functions as well. I will find that out for you, but in my initial review here, I don't really know. So let us move forward to the front here. We have 3 adjusters here. The center adjuster is actually what's going to remove this, what's it called? The detent rail, that's what it's called. So if we loosen this, the detent rail comes out, okay? And that can slide right back in and pop in. So the process to change detents is going to be one you'll find on the VKB site, and I will link that in the description because I think that VKB and the person they've got doing videos did a really good job at making the videos, at showing you how to do things, and I really want to give them props for that, so I want you to go check those out. I will do a swap out just to show you how I do it, but the real details are in the video that they created. So these are the tension adjusters for the throttle knobs. Now what I would do is I would adjust these separately. You want them to feel the same left and right? So I would adjust them, find the tension you want, because you want to have both the feel that you like with both grips and the feel you like with one. So test with one first. See, this one's a little bit looser than this one. So I'm going to loosen this one up a little bit more until I get the feel I want from both, then put them together and make sure that the feeling I want for having both together is still there. All right, so let's look at the grips themselves. We're going to be looking again at the stock setup, and then I'm going to go into what I'm going to be wanting to use, okay? So first and foremost, on the back here, we have 2 triggers, and boy, the activation of those triggers feels quite good. There's a lot of throw, but there's no doubt when you've activated it. And that's interesting. I'm really curious what I'm going to use those for. And I'm wondering if I'm going to have accidental activations. I don't know, because the way that I'm using it up here on the table is going to be different than the way I'm going to be using it mounted. Now, I guess if you had this sitting on the table, and so you were reaching up to your throttle, which, by the way, I don't recommend doing. I recommend using mounts, because on mounts, it's going to put it down where it's supposed to be, and that's not going to interfere. So I could see some people using this on a table, possibly activating those on accident, but you'll get used to it. So not too worried about that. Let's take a look at the face of the stick, I would call it. The face of the stick being your primary location for your controls. I guess this would be the right face, you could say. So on here we have, by default, a Joy-Con controller. I don't really like the cone style. I don't like that. I feel like when I activate it, I would move it. I really like the dish style. So I know that some people have talked about, yeah, you can take those off. So this is a fairly common style of stick. In fact, I have some of these sticks right over here that I was using for another project. So finding one that uses the same kind, it should be very similar to others. So I'm going to replace this with a dish style. In fact, I bet you I've got some sitting around that I can use. This is a 5-way hat with, 5 ways, so 4 and center push. Feels pretty good. This one's a button right now by default. And then this, I believe, is a 3-way. So yeah, this is a 3-way. Yeah, no, not a 5-way, a 3-way. Okay, so let's look at the front. The front, we have 2 buttons and 1 more button on this one. And then underneath this trigger, you're going to see another button and a hat. So there's a 5-way. And then here are 2 triggers, an encoder, and 1 more encoder here. So encoder, encoder, button, 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 hat, triggers. Great. All right, so one other thing that we can do here. We can take this little kit that they provided us, and we can replace any of these that you see that have 2 screws on either side of them. So this one and this one on the front, and this one, and this one on the side. We can replace those with other types of switches. For example, if we wanted to, let me grab my magazine, as they call it, and I think that's pretty cool. I also think it's really cool that they provided such a thing by default. So we could say, hey, we don't want a button here. We want this 3-way switch here. So we could literally just take this out and move this down here, and bam, we've got that 3-way switch there. Or let's say we want to retain this 3-way switch, but we want a 5-way there. So we could just take this 5-way and put it here. We don't want a button on the front, so let's take a 5-way and let's put it there. This is fantastic, especially for those that maybe specialize in a particular airframe, and they want to try to make changes to match their airframe as best as possible. Boy, you can really do that with this. That is a wonderful option for customizability. And then, boy, we're going to get into the detents here and customizing those to our heart's content, because we have several different types of detents. They've got tall, I believe they're calling them tall L and short L, and tall V and short V, and then W ones, which are like have a center detent to them. And then the software can help you to modify those even more. So yeah, this is wonderful. I'm really excited about this. And it's actually a bit heavier than I thought it would be. And obviously we're going to compare this thing with its contemporaries. We have the Orion 2 sitting here. I've got an Orion 1, but I'm just going to compare it to the Orion 2. We have the Warthog that we can compare to, and there's also the Virpil solutions. So yeah, we're really going to compare this well with things. Yes, it is ABS plastic with a metal base, but I don't have an issue with that. The fact of the matter is, you can make incredibly high quality, incredibly strong devices out of plastic. Believe it or not. So I'm not really worried about that. I can tell you right now, just by moving it, these are on metal ball bearings. So when you're thinking about, oh, well, it could wear out. Metal ball bearings are going to outlive the rest of the device. You look at other devices that have plastic gimbals that have lasted forever. Look at the Thrustmaster Warthog, plastic gimbal. And I'm not talking about the stick. The stick has major issues. I'm talking about the Throttle, also has plastic gimbals. Last forever. So believe me, it's gonna last. I have no qualms about that. Oh, I might add that these panels here, they're metal. So it has a really nice feeling machined aluminum, it feels like, plates on it. And the hard parts of the stick, so like the case, the handles, it feels like they are fiber reinforced ABS. So that's going to be really strong stuff. So that's fantastic. Anyway, I look forward to testing the heck out of this, and let's take a quick look inside. All right, so as you can see, here's the joint, and the joint clamps down on the ball bearings, and then these are obviously greased for your damping, and these are going to tighten down that clutch. So they're going to come forward and clamp down up here, which is going to create that friction. So I'm guessing that these drums in here are greased. That's what it looks like. We have our electronics here. This is a bridge that can connect here at the bus to other devices up here. Okay, and this has a similar system here where it has another bus cable that comes down to your button panel. And this is connected together using this part here. So yeah, this thing, very sturdy, very strong. So on the side here, I want to have this one over here. I'm going to play around with that first. There is a lock on this, so press that down and pop, there it goes. So we will be changing that with another one. Okay, we're going to bring this one over here. Plug it in there. And nicely insert that down in there. These are self-tapping screws, so you're not going to want to tighten them down very tightly. Just snug. Okay, and then we are going to grab one of these. We are going to insert this one here. There's a little key right here, and there's a key right there. right, we are going to come to the front here, and I'm going to do this one. This one is a little bit trickier to work with, but you can still get to it just fine. So I'm going to put these into the magazine. I'm going to grab one of these. Perfect. And get that inserted back in there. One of our screws. And finally, just like that. So I think that this is the way that I'm going to be testing it. Is going to be, I'm going to retain their little three-way. I'm going to add a 5-way here. So 5-way, 5-way, slew, 5-way, 5-way. I think that's how I'm going to configure this. Now I'm going to be getting it kind of configured for, because I'm going to be using this primarily in DCS. I will do some testing in Star Citizen, which means I will come over here and I'm going to do an extensive amount of testing, but just to give you a preview, my plans are going to be to use this one for space. So for space, I believe that my preference is going to be to use one of these. I believe these just slide out. There they are, yeah. I believe my preference is going to be to use one of these, W style, at the 50% mark. Yep. And just as they suggest, we're going to put this thing right in here. And take this thing and put it right up there. And as usual, okay, and bring this up to the 50 mark. See? So there's where that 50% mark will be, or so, actually. That's a nice 50% mark there, that's good. And then so that will be the space one. And this one is going to be my DCS one because I like blue. For DCS, we're going to take a, I'm going to say one of these tall ones right here. Let's just poke this out from behind. I'm going to take one of these tall ones like this. And I'm going to put this one put that in there. We're going to put that all the way up at all the way up at about 80%, about right there. Okay, put that one there. That's for the afterburner. And then we're gonna want one of these tall L's. These buggers. And we're gonna put this one as the idle detent. I want to make sure we face it in the right direction. We're going to put it all the way down at 0. Yep, this is going to be our 0 detent. Okay, so let's put this one in and see how we like the feel of it, because you know that's going to be the first thing before any of the electronics. We want to okay. You know, this one I might switch out for the smaller one. I don't know. I kind of like not being able to push up against that and know that that's my afterburner there. And then down here, yeah, I definitely want. I want to be able to throttle down and not accidentally push into the idle. So I like the way that that feels. It's actually got quite a good amount of throw. Let's swap these out. These look like they're fairly simple. I would have liked them to be Allen wrench, but this is fine too. I guess it's one of the reasons is that these are probably self-tapping screws. And that's why these are not and that's all there is to it, folks. So there is obviously two pieces. This one is the larger of the two, and this one will go here. Okay, so I think that this is the way that we are going to test it. The only exception that I'll make, that I might change, would be to change this for this. I think I want to try to keep that just because in VR it would be really nice to be able to feel the differences between my inputs here. But that one is pretty far away from my thumb. It might end up going here. Yeah, I may swap around these positions. I may put in an additional 5-way hat. But yeah, we'll take a look. So I think that the first thing that we're going to do for a test flight is I'm going to go in and I'm going to configure the detents, and then we're going to do some free flights in the F-15E. All right, so as you can see, this is my setup for the detents for the F-15, and it'll also be this way for many other DCS modules such as the the A10C. I will go talk about my idle detent first. My idle detent is set with a greater than 1 and less than 2, or yeah, whatever this is called here, the event. It is only at the very bottom of the throttle range. And if we look at test, you can see how this works. So if I am in test, you can see that 1 and 2 are activated when I'm at the very bottom of the range. But if I put it above the detent, it switches to 3 and 4. So that means if I push it all the way down, this turns my engines off. If I push it above that range, that tells them that I just changed my engines to idle. So this will allow me to switch them to idle to start the engines. Also with the F15, if I use the 2 triggers, that's my finger lifts. So pretty cool there, eh? So let's look at the back to the profile. So I've set this detent to 75%, which is when the afterburner comes on in DCS, which is, I did move it a little bit. I could, though, edit this part of the curve, so I could put this detent wherever I wanted, and it would still reach 75% or cross 75%, as you're noticing here, when that detent happens. So that would be something that you could do. I think I'm going to leave it as is for now. But yeah, let's get to the flying. So as we're going through the flying here, just a couple of quick thoughts. First and foremost, sorry for the production value of the audio in the first part of the video. I was not able to re-record those. Usually I do re-record those with the mic here, but unfortunately this was a little bit hurried because I'm leaving on vacation here today. So some final thoughts on the throttle itself. It feels very high quality. Just first impressions, feels as high quality as any other throttle I've ever used. That includes the metal throttles, okay? So I don't think I'm going to hold that fact that it is, ABS against it. We'll see. We're going to give it some time. We're going to beat the crap out of it like I usually do with every other device that I fly with, and we'll make that determination. But right now, the axes, they're very smooth. They operate beautifully within DCS. It was later on here, I get in formation really quickly before they change speed suddenly, and it was a very easy transition into that. I really look forward to trying some aerial refueling with this. Look forward to flying some A10C with this. This is going to be a lot of fun to test this thing out. But yeah, let's see how this thing goes going forward. I really appreciate you viewing the video, and please leave a comment in the comment section down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It really does help us content creators out, because the more subscribers that we have, the more eager that other companies are to be able to send us hardware to test, which keeps the channel going. Please stay tuned to the channel. We got a lot of really interesting things coming up, such as building our Apache Collective on an Orion 1 throttle, which is going to be a lot of fun, going to be really interesting, going to be very informative. We're going to be building a whole bunch of stuff this year, and that's in addition to these wonderful reviews that we've got for you. So yeah, stay tuned, and as always, have fun, fly safe, and have a great day.